thought that we came from a rock. Why would you believe something so dumb as that evolutionary biologists think we came from rocks? Why do you keep repeating this lie no matter how many times you've been corrected?
Well, I haven't been corrected. You think
you've been corrected right now?
So what?
Just now.
Okay, so
not
what?
By me.
What evolutionary biologist in history has made that claim that we evolved from rocks? So I'm 48 years old, and I've never heard that except for creationists say it ever.
Okay, let's. I'm looking for the slides in the textbook now, but I have hundreds of textbooks. Do you believe that the Earth cooled down? Do you believe the Earth cooled down 4.6 billion years ago?
Kent, with all due respect, you are changing the subject right now.
No. This is exactly the point. Do you believe?
Exactly the point was for you to identify kinds. That was the only way that you could deal with my two items of evidence that I gave, was that we know things that are true to be, we know things that are verifiably, demonstrably, observably true about evolution, where we have no such information about creationism. That's one you have failed to address. You simply denied that it exists, and you redefined everything through the fallacy of equivocation, and you have failed to address the phylogeny challenge. So you can't address my issue with phylogeny either.
Well, we're on to 5 different topics. Let me answer the one about the rock.
Well, the same topics. These are the same topics.
Okay.
They're just
okay. I have in front of me the answer to your question. Here is a first grade textbook in my collection, which says Earth has changed much since its formation 4.5 billion years ago. Do you guys believe the Earth is 4.5 billion years old? Or 4.6 or 4.6297 and 3 months.
I will have to defer to the experts on this because I don't know the thermodynamics or the physics. There are other people who do that. I do phylogeny.
I'm showing you from the textbook, a first grade, I could show you from every year textbook, that the Earth formed 4.5 or 4.6 billion years ago, and it was a hot ball of rock. This is what the books teach.
Okay. Is metal also rock?
Well, yeah.
I've heard that it was rock and metal. My textbook said it was rock and metal. Matter of fact, I think my textbook said rock, metal, and gases.
So did this hot ball
how do you distinguish rock from metal?
Well, that would be an interesting question. I think there are quite a few metals.
Well, especially since our bones are made of calcium, and that's considered a metal too.
Sure.
And you've already established that oxygen cannot be considered a rock even if you freeze it.
Before you dance around the subject,
again,
I'm showing you the answer.
That nobody ever believed that we came from rocks.
I'm showing you right.
You guys are talking over each other now. Kent, what you just said, what you just quoted from that textbook, I just don't think answers that question. That doesn't involve evolution. Evolution is something that requires genes to have a change of genetic frequency of the alleles. Whether the initial sources, you can go back to where they came from the Earth, where they came from stellar nuclear synthesis, where they came from the Big Bang. You can always go back where the elements came from, but we're not asking where the elements came from. We're asking you. You're saying that evolutionary theory states that we evolved from rocks. I have yet to ever see that, and what you quoted has nothing to do with evolution.
Well, that's where in the last 20 years, it's maybe because of my seminar. I'll take credit for that.
I'm almost 50. I've never heard it ever before in my life except for what you have said in the past and other creationists.
Well,
so I'm still
wonderful.
not seeing anywhere it has said that we have evolved from a rock.
Well, then God sent me here to help you then. Because the textbooks clearly teach the Earth cooled down 4.5 billion years ago, and it was a hot ball of rock.
But that's planetary formation. That's not evolution.
Right. When do we start with evolution?
You're not up to the evolutionary part yet. You're at planetary formation.
Yeah. We're not talking about concretion here. We're talking about evolution.
You can go back to the nebula hypothesis, but that doesn't get you to evolution yet.
And even if we were to misdefine it the way he is here, where he wants to take descent with genetic and inherent genetic modification and somehow extrapolate that to planetary concretion, still we didn't come from rocks.
Yeah,
because this is obviously not a planet just of rock. It's also rock and metal and gas and other things that don't qualify as either of these things, like amino acids and so forth. Just being made of chemical, he's already admitted, does not mean rock. If you can freeze oxygen and you still wouldn't call it a rock, just like you wouldn't call ice a rock, then it's not rock because it's not a mineral. So we're done. You're wrong, Kent. Correct your error.
We're not done, and you are wrong, and I have nothing to correct. Now, the textbooks teach 4.6 billion years ago, the Earth cooled down. It was a hot ball of rock. From that rock, the gases escaped and made an atmosphere of oxygen. From that
rock...
So
you're saying oxygen is a rock?
No, it came from the rock.
Okay, but oxygen doesn't come from rock, does
oxygen, many of the rocks contain oxygen.
Oxygen is an element.
I agree.
What mineral does oxygen come from?
I don't know, but I can show you where the text
doesn't come from a mineral, Kent.
The textbooks teach the Earth began as a hot ball of rock, and everything came from there.
Does hydrogen come from rock?
Apparently so.
How would that be apparent?
Well, you get a chemistry book and see how many rocks or minerals contain hydrogen in part of their chemical equation.
Well, many will contain the simplest of all elements, but that doesn't mean it comes from rock. You don't need rocks to create hydrogen. As a matter of fact, you need hydrogen to create rocks.
Wow. You asked me to point out where the textbooks teach this, and I show this clearly on my video.
And you failed utterly. Faceplant. The sad thing is you don't know that you face-planted. That's the disturbing thing.
No,
or maybe that you do, but you realize that donors won't see it if you can gloss over it somehow. But hydrogen does not come from rocks. You can combine two hydrogens to make lithium, for example, and you can combine, or obviously helium, and then combine a third one to make lithium, and so on. And you can get up to rocks, but you can't get hydrogen from rocks because rocks may contain hydrogen, but rocks don't produce hydrogen.
So according to the theory in the textbooks, the Earth was a hot ball of rock 4.6 billion years ago, and the gases came out of those rocks. I didn't write it. Which
means that the rocks did not produce the hydrogen. The hydrogen pre-existed them, and still no evolutionary biologist ever believed we came from a rock. Now, if we can get past that, which I know you're never going to concede this error, because when have you ever conceded any error, no matter how obvious? We're still getting to the 2 points of evidence that I brought up, which you failed to address, either one of them. Now, if you want to get off of phylogenetics, fine. Just declare your failure there. Otherwise, I'll have to paraphrase the question again and see how you fail to answer it again. Or we can go to the other one, if you like, and we can see how you fail to address that.
Okay, let's take the phylogenetics one. What you have, Aron, as evidence is lines on a piece of paper.
Except that we've already proved that it's not that at all. Can you draw lines on a piece of paper to a cat from a dog? So you can include a family of dogs. Are they a family of dogs only because we drew lines? Or is there some other way that people have decided whether there's a family of dogs? And whether the Borophagians or the wolves or the Lycanopictus, whether the painted African wild dog, are they part of dogs? Is it because somebody drew a line on a piece of paper? Or is there some other thing that is the reason they drew the line?
I have a textbook showing lines on paper connecting dogs and pine trees.
Does it explain the reason that they drew the lines? Does it explain the evidence why they drew the lines?
No.
Okay, so they just drew the line because they wanted to? Just what, willy-nilly? So they can just draw lines from dogs to whales so that whales are now part of the dog kind? Because you can draw lines that way. So can you show me a textbook where they've done that? Where they've identified whales as a subset of dogs?
I did a Google search yesterday on systematics.
Is that a yes or a no?
I'm showing you a picture. Well, you can't see it.
Is that a yes or a no?
I'm answering your question.
Are you answering it with a yes or are you answering it with a no?
Aron,
can you answer either one?
There are many other ways to answer
questions. Give me your
explanations
after you tell me if it's yes or no.
Okay. 2 + 2 = 4. It would be a yes or no question.
You can't answer
but
yes
if I
or no.
said what?
Answer yes or no. Okay.
You're interrupting again. Many questions cannot be answered with a yes or no, like what color is the sky? That's not a yes or no question. Hello. I'm showing you on the screen, which you can see when you watch my PowerPoint. Lines on paper.
Your camera hasn't worked since this podcast began.
It will be up on my YouTube channel, Kent Hovind Official.
Your YouTube subscribers can see what you're not showing me, but at least admit that you're not showing it to me.
I'm telling you where I found it, and you can watch my YouTube anytime you'd like.
I do not want to subject myself to that. I don't like fiction.
That's why I don't. That's why. Aron, that's why I don't watch yours either, but that's okay. Google search systematics, just the word systematics. It shows a picture of a lizard, a snake, a crocodile, and a bird, and they have lines drawn connecting them to a common ancestor.
Lizard, snake, crocodile, Bird.
Bird. Yep. It's a cardinal.
So you have 2 lepidosaurs and 2 archosaurs, all 3 of which are diapsid, or excuse me, all 4 of which are diapsid. Okay, I follow you so far. Go ahead.
So you think birds and crocodiles are related? Is that correct?
They are archosaurs, both of them.
So they are related.
Meaning that they are related within the confines of the class or the clade Archosauria. Yes.
So they had a common ancestor. A crocodile and a bird had a common ancestor.
In the fossil record. Right now, if we're only talking about Linnaean characteristics of classification, then yes, birds are archosaurs just as are crocodiles.
So you're saying birds and crocodiles are related because...
I'm saying that birds are in the same category as crocodiles because they're both archosaurs.
Okay,
there is other evidence that we can get to that shows that they are related.
Okay,
One of them being...
You have a group of evidence, and by the way, evidence is a word. You can Google search it, but you have a group
quantifiable. You don't count evidences.
It is a word. Okay, it is in the dictionary.
A word, but it's not countable, so it's grammatically incorrect to say evidences.
I'm glad you think it is. Okay, but it is in the dictionary. Now, this shows a line between a crocodile and a bird to a common ancestor. Mm-hmm. You say there are evidences that indicate this is true because somebody decided to call them the same and put them in the same category.
Wrong. Not because somebody decided to call them the same thing. As I said, Carolus Linnaeus obviously wasn't happy with realizing that humans were apes or the apes were humans, and he couldn't reconcile that. He obviously had huge dilemmas with that. And his dilemma was with the religious community because he knew that he would be under the ban of all ecclesiastics if he were to admit this.
And you think that's why he did it. Okay. Well, this is called in the text.
What's why he did what?
You think he really did believe in evolution, but didn't dare say it because of the
because first of all, it's not a belief; it's something that's indicated by the facts. Secondly, he didn't even know about evolution, didn't even think it was a possibility, so never considered it. And so this is why it was such a dilemma for him. When Darwin came up with natural selection and found that it was actually possible to derive new species from other species, then he realized how this tree of life that Linnaeus had discovered, he found out the answer that explained the problem that Linnaeus couldn't answer himself.
So Darwin counted 14 species of finches on the islands, and that proves finches and crocodiles are related.
If you have any idea what you're talking about and extrapolate it, yes. There's an awful lot that you refuse to look at that indicates that. Yes.
I'll look at anything. I think this.
You haven't looked at anything I've shown you so far. And I would genuinely love to help you with this, but you are really having a problem. I could try to summarize it another way, because we brought up cats before. I mean, would you say that Bengal tigers are related to Burmese tigers and all other tiger species?
Probably so. Yes, sir.
Probably. So we're not even talking about. There's not even a probability that God created individual tiger species. So they all had a common ancestor that was a tiger.
No, there is a probability that there were several original kinds of tigers. I don't know. I've said that many times.
Several original kinds. So God created the Burmese tiger and the Bengal tiger and all the other original tiger species, so they don't have a common ancestor at all.
I didn't say that. You're the one saying that. I said, and I'll say it again. Maybe you'll get it this time. Okay, I said, I don't know how many original kinds of tigers there were. There might have only been 2 tigers. There might have been 8 tigers.
Again, as I said, if evolution from common ancestry is not true and some special flavor of creation is of unidentified kinds is true, then there would be some surface levels in the cladogram where you would accept an actual phylogeny. But then there must also be subsequent levels in that twin-nested hierarchy where things are not the biologically related anymore. And at that time, it would be magically created separate kinds. You haven't shown me even the possibility of kinds yet.
I'm looking at a phylogenetic systematics drawing taken from the internet yesterday when I thought we were going to have this discussion, but because of technical problems we did not. It shows a whale and a horse and a camel all having a common ancestor. This is what they show the kids. I'm looking at another drawing taken off the internet yesterday, and you can watch Kent Hovind Official, and I'll even buy you a Pepsi to drink. I'm not going to buy you beer, but I'll buy you Pepsi to drink while you watch it, showing the panther and the dog and the otter and the skunk related, as I mentioned before. And this is how they classify them. Darwin saw 14 varieties of finches. He then jumped to the wild conclusion, and he said so on page 170 of his book. He said, it's a truly wonderful fact that all animals and all plants throughout all time and space should be related to each other. This